Hi there. We are about to embark on our first drawing together from the image pack that I sent you. So we're going to be taking a look at the Metamorphosis of Narcissus by Salvador Dali. So if you want to pull that image up, I've attached it to your Google Classroom assignment as well. Get some paper and a pencil and follow along. All right, let's have some fun. Okay, we're ready to get started now. You can see I have my paper here. And I'm going to be using a Sharpie marker. You can just go ahead and follow along with a pencil. And I'm just going to take a small portion of the painting, The Metamorphosis of Narcissus by Salvador Dali. And I'm just going to draw one part of it because it's a lot of details to take in. So one of the main tips that I want you to start with is simplify. When things are very complicated, you start a drawing, simplify it. So I'm going to actually start with the head of the figure of Narcissus. And I usually like to start with the heads if I'm drawing a person, because once I get the head in, then it's easier to draw the rest of the details for the body. So I've kind of drawn, it's almost an egg shape. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect, because you're using your pencil, you can go back through and you can erase. I've left a little bit right here where the kneecap is going to be coming up and overlapping the chin. So I can draw that in like that. Okay, I'm going to follow the curves down to create the side of the leg. And one thing you'll notice about Salvador Dali's paintings, the lines are not very straight. They're very undulating. They go back and forth and they're very wavy. Because he liked to create works of art that didn't quite seem real. They had sort of a dream-like quality to them. Okay, from what you remember from the type of art that he used to create. Okay, so now that I've gotten my basic two structures, I can build the rest of the figure off of this. And remember that what you're doing is you're breaking things down from line and simple shapes. Okay, lines will form the shapes. And you really want to look at, where are things located relative to other parts of your picture. Because if we can see where this arm is coming down and it intersects with this point here on the leg, then I know that on the other side, this part, this spot here is where I'm going to start drawing the other leg, which is kind of bent over, as Narcissus is, kind of kneeling over this pool of water. And again, this is not about being perfect, so you want to come back in, you want to rework some of your lines, it's totally okay. It does not have to look exactly like the original either. This is about, again, using that image to build off of for your own sake, that you're building details using the famous work of art, that really you're getting an understanding of how they are creating art, so it adds to your vocabulary of line, shape, and color, and overall design. Okay, now let's draw the other line here because this is leg coming down on the other side. Okay, now I have the basic structure of Narcissus now. And since we are looking into a pool of water, I'm going to draw the reflection lines coming down. I don't know exactly what this is, but it's a reflection of that part of the leg. Sometimes it's hard to tell what Salvador Dali was doing and thinking. And that's okay. Art does not always have to make sense. Okay, but it is good to be able to talk about it, and it's good to be able to have some ideas that go along with your art, because this is about how your thoughts and your feelings are being expressed through a visual image. Okay. All right. So that's our figure. And now we can put this figure into a setting. So I'm going to draw some of the details around my figure. There's a rock, and then I'll just show this is the edge of the water here. Okay, and then up this side, it's just kind of a line here. And you don't really have to show a lot of detail. It's just kind of giving you an impression of what's happening in the background. Now in the painting, there's some kind of like a rock formation. I'm going to draw that in the background here. Down like that. And there is a little bit of hair, some kind of crazy, scraggly hair Salvador Dali drew for Narcissus coming out the back. Okay, so that is the line drawing that I just did for you there that hopefully you're able to follow along. And again, that would be called a contour line drawing because the lines that go around the outer edge of an object are the contour lines. All right, now we're going to add the shading and shadows. Okay, so this is where you can have a little fun again. Okay, so now I've got my ebony pencil, and I'm going to get ready to start adding my shading and the shadows. Now, typically what I want to do is I want to find out where is the light coming from. And in this picture, it kind of seems like the light is coming from here and hitting our figure this way. So anything that is going behind or underneath the light source is where I'm going to be adding the shading and shadows. So first of all, I know that this part of the leg is in front. This isn't a really easy place to start shading. I'm going to color in really dark right next to the lines that form the leg. Color in really dark right in between the edges. Okay. Get into those little cracks and crevices and right into those corners. And then I'm going to follow the shape of the leg as I'm doing this. So I'm not only just adding the shading and shadows, but I'm showing you the shape of what it is I'm shading as well. It's a good thing to keep in mind. You know, when we work with sculpture, if we were making things out of clay, you're actually building it. This is kind of what you do. You'd actually think about your drawing as you're sculpting a three-dimensional object. Even though it's actually on a piece of paper, you're still trying to create that effect that it's a three-dimensional solid object. Okay, see, I'm getting right into those corners, filling it in. This is my darkest value. And remember, value is an element of art. It refers to the light and darks of a color. And right now I'm using black as my color. And my darkest values will be right where there's the least amount of light hitting my object. Then, as I get farther away from those edges, I'm going to just lighten up the pressure a little bit on my ebony pencil so that it's not quite as dark. And I'm going to slowly blend from light to medium to dark. And I can use my blending capability here. That's what's good about these ebony pencils. You can blend. Now, I am saying ebony pencil. This is something that I like to use when I'm making drawings and sketches. Now, if you don't have an ebony pencil, that's fine. You can just use a regular pencil. You could use a black crayon. That even works too. Or you could use charcoal or chalk pastel, you know, if you really want to get fancy. Okay. You can order these online on Amazon, so that way you don't have to risk going down to the store right now. I know what that's like. Okay, I'm going to continue shading up on the other side, bringing all this shadow down this side of the leg. And what you might see starting to happen as you're adding the shading on one side of the line, and the other side of the line here you're keeping light, you're not putting the shading and shadows on there, that's creating what's called a contrast between light and dark. And that's what really is the key to making something look three-dimensional, when you have the contrast between light and dark. This light part seems to pop out of the picture, and the dark part seems to go back into the picture. And that's what creates that illusion of three-dimensional space. Okay, now here's our kneecap on this side of our figure. I'm going to shade that in. Okay, make sure that you're also looking at the original picture as you're working. Because, as you're just getting at the beginning stages of learning how to do shading and shadows better, you really want to look at how are the experts, how are the advanced professional artists tackling the same kind of problem that you are to make this look three-dimensional. And the more you can see them as just like more advanced along the path that you're on, you can learn from them, and you can take what skills and strategies and techniques that they use basically to work on their art, and you can integrate that, take it into yourself, and you can reapply it into your own work. And that's how you get better sometimes, just by like practicing and seeing what other people do. Now, it's not to say that you're not original and unique yourself, because you're going to take this basic skill and you're going to process it through your own lens, your own artistic lens, on how you see the world and how you create things. So while your artistic ability is processed through that lens, something new is going to come about. Like even me, like in this picture that I'm drawing, it's not exactly like what Salvador Dali did, and that's okay. This is Mr. Stover's version of the Metamorphosis of Narcissus. Okay. Now, if you look here, see where are some more dramatic areas of the picture. I think like right here, you can see that there's a shadow that comes across where the bend in the arm is. So I'm going to put that in there. I'm going to draw the shape of my shadow just to give me some guidelines for how it's going to look. Okay. And then I'm going to start shading that part in too. And sometimes what I'll do, if I've got a large area to shade, I'm just going to shade it all in, kind of like a medium shade, just so I can cover that area. So I can see what I'm working with. And once I have that base value, the medium value, then I can see, okay, where do I need to make this darker? Where do I need to like emphasize the lines more? The shading and shadow. So I'll put that pressure back on, get those areas nice and dark. Okay. And then do a little blending. And that's one of the other tricks to making things look really three-dimensional and realistic in a way, is blending it. So it actually looks more like a real shadow. Okay. All right. And then we've got some area in here. This is very much, it's kind of a medium tone that is darker than, say, what's on the arm right here. So I'm just going to come through and just shade that in a little bit too. And this is a big area. So what I'm going to do is just kind of make some big, long strokes. Just again, cover that area of the paper with some value. Okay. Keep it nice and soft as you do this. Pay attention to your edges though. Your edges should be nice and smooth and clean. And then you can blend. Okay. Okay. And now I've got that area. That looks pretty good for now. And on this side of the figure, right here, there's a nice shadow. So really on this side, all you can see is the shoulder blade is highlighted. So I'm going to draw that curved shape of the shoulder blade. Then everything else I can just like shade in. Same thing that I did on the inside. Okay. And blend that in. Okay, there we go. How's yours coming along? Is it looking pretty similar? Okay, now the last part we're going to do today will be this lovely round egg-shaped head of Narcissus. And so what you want to do is look at where are the darkest areas and kind of map those out first. Okay, so I'm looking at, there's like this part right here that comes down that's a lot darker than the rest of it. So I'm going to first, and it's not even a regular curved line. He does some very interesting undulating lines. Again, I love that word, undulating. It means to go up and down and back and forth, kind of like waves undulating. Okay, just bring it down. Remember, it's a curved surface, so you want to curve your lines as you do this. Now, if you notice right here, that's a highlight. So I'm going to draw a line to separate the shadow from the highlight so that I can still see that distinct line. Now in that space, I can start coloring again. I'm just going to, same thing, medium tone all the way through. And then when I get up here, I see that there's another shape that the shadow makes. Comes down a little bit like this. Draw that in. Shade that in too. Okay. Now this is a very dark shadow. You know, when you have a dark shadow, it's very dramatic. So I'm going to apply some more pressure now. Get that shaded in. Really dark up against the line where there is going to be a very light shadow or very light highlight right next to the shadow. That always creates a dramatic effect. Something that Salvador Dali was very well known for. His art was very dramatic. He was very dramatic. A little bit wacky, you might even say. But hey, that's what, you know, artists can be, a little bit wacky. They've been known for that. Now, there's also this other shape that Salvador Dali drew. It's kind of like a crack in the head because, you know, if you didn't notice, it kind of looks like maybe it's an egg. It's an egg shape, and it's actually taking the kind of qualities of an egg. So maybe this is part of the shell that's chipping away. I'm not really sure. It's hard to tell what Salvador Dali was thinking at all the time. But that's part of the magic of art, is that you can create your own stories. You can create your own ideas about what's actually happening here. Okay. Now, if you also look, there's a little bit of a lighter shadow around the top and along the bottom. So I'm just going to do a very light value just to finish up the shading and shadows here and smooth out the rounded nature of this egg-shaped head. Okay, and you can just continue to keep adding more shading and shadows, and you know, just play around with it a little bit till you get it to look the way you like and what looks good to you. The main goal for you to, as you're working on these works of art, is to you find a sense of satisfaction in what you're doing. Are you happy with what this looks like? Okay, now very last thing I'm going to do, just to kind of finalize it, I'm going to do these shadows around the shoulder blade. Okay, and then this part, this scraggly hair, is very dark. I want to make sure I get that dark value in and do this picture justice. Hopefully Salvador Dali will be pleased with what we're doing today. Because no, he is no longer alive. And actually, this painting was completed in 1937. So quite a while ago when he painted this. You know, back at the early part of the 20th century. And voila. Well, that's it for today. Hope you had some fun. And I would like to see if we could take that a little bit deeper now. I'm going to ask you 3 questions on the Google Classroom. The first question will be, who was Narcissus? And what's the story behind that? Number 2, what is metamorphosis? And where do we encounter that in life? And number 3, how does metamorphosis and Narcissus relate to you and your life? So you can use the internet to look up the answers. Let me know what you come up with. I look forward to hearing from you. You have a great day.